Good evening, everyone. If I could have your attention, please. We're going to get started now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin, and I serve as the president for Change, which is the student organization that acts as the student arm of the Rutland Institute for Ethics. On behalf of the Rutland Institute for Ethics, I would like to thank you all for participating in our annual Tigers for Integrity, Discourse, and Ethics Conference. The Rutland Institute's TIDE Conference seeks to inform participants of ethical dilemmas in order to promote discourse and cultivate integrity as it relates to specific academic disciplines and to move participants to address those dilemmas. The conference will critically examine how integrity and discourse intersect, diverge, and create a more just society and a university culture that promotes fairness and respect. Tonight's speakers will lead sessions on their respective topics that encompass this year's theme, Clemson Tigers, fulfilling our mission one decision at a time. Many of you are here as part of a class assignment, so we want to make sure that your attendance is accounted for. We will utilize a QR code at the beginning and end of today's sessions, which will verify all attendees who are present now and remain throughout the duration of the entire session. Should you need to leave early, you will need to work with your instructor on how to verify your attendance. We encourage all of you to stay until the end if possible. Please scan the QR code on the screen and complete the short survey for our pre-session attendance. I'll give a couple seconds. All right. At the end of today's presentation, we will also share some of our upcoming events. To stay connected to the work of the Institute, we suggest you follow us on social media so that you can see more ways to engage with us. Please take a moment to join us in making ethics a priority by utilizing the QR code that is presently shown on the screen and click the follow button. Appreciate it, y'all. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight's session, Mr. Jeff Duckworth. Mr. Jeff Duckworth is a Clemson alum graduating with his BA in financial management. He is a senior distribution executive at Manulife John Hancock Investments. There he oversees distribution of mutual funds, ETFs, separately managed accounts, the Freedom 529 plan, and private investments across a broad range of financial channels, while also leading capital markets research, investment consulting, and sales operations. As a member of the firm's executive management team, he plays a key role in shaping U.S. strategy, having risen through the ranks from wholesaler to his current leadership position. Prior to joining John Hancock, he served as national sales manager at Market Investment Distributors, a subsidiary of J.C. Bradford & Co., and holds the Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor designation. Please welcome Mr. Jeff Duckworth as he addresses the following topic, Embracing Ethical Leadership in a Time of Uncertainty, Part 1.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening. So I have to say the last time I was in this room would have been second semester, freshman year, freshman biology. And if you told me then that 41 years later, I'd be speaking to you as a keynote speaker, I would have said you're nuts, because I was just doing my best to make it through biology that semester. So I did graduate from Clemson, and by the way, does this sound okay? Graduated from Clemson in May of 1988, along with many of my friends ready to make our mark on the world. Well, one of those friends, 18 months later, found himself moving and living in New Orleans, ready to take on a new territory that he had, and this was 3 months prior to his wedding. Well, an unforeseen thing came, and he had to deal with a tragedy. 3 months before his wedding, his fiancée passed away. Think about that. You've moved to a new city. You're about to get married. Your fiancée passes away. On a Saturday, he went to the funeral. On Monday, called his boss. And he said to his boss, hey, I'm going to stay in Atlanta for a few days with my family to try to get my life back together, and I'll return back to my territory this weekend. A conversation like that can go in many different directions. He was assuming his boss, his manager, would say, hey, take the time you need. I totally understand. But instead, this is what his manager said. Okay, but don't take too much time. You need to get back on the horse. Just think about that for a minute. Let that sink in. You're maybe 2-3 years from now, you got your first job, your first manager, you've gone through a tragedy, and your boss just told you, that's okay, but don't take too much time. You need to get back on the horse. This young man, 2 months before his 24th birthday, and 3 months before he's supposed to get married, is completely in shock. He did go back to New Orleans. He did get back in his territory. He drove the business, quite frankly, very, very well. But I'll ask you, do you think he had much respect for that manager? That territory went from the bottom third in the company when he first took over to number 2 in the company, approaching number 1. But all he could think about, and I remember these words very vividly, all he could think about was get back on the horse. And the reason I remember those words so vividly, this was not a friend. This happened to me. So going back to my territory, 4 years later, taking the territory from the bottom third to number 2, approaching number 1, but I was still reported to the same manager inside the same company. So let me ask you, do you think I had loyalty to that manager? Do you think I had loyalty to the company? No, just because of him, I couldn't. So probably no surprise that when a call came to me 4 years after that event, the call came in and said, hey, would you be interested in a new job working for a different company in Charlotte? By the way, back in the financial services industry, which I kind of wanted to get to anyway, do you think I hesitated for a minute to talk to that company? Not at all, because I did not report to an ethical leader. So I took that job and I joined a company called Manulife with Logan, which by the way became Manulife John Hancock, company I'm with today. Think about that. That was 1993 at that time. Now fast forward 3 years later, it's now 1997, and I get a call, a random call. I was living in Charlotte. I get a call from one of our top clients, J.C. Bradford and Company in Nashville. J.C. Bradford, who was a good client, was asking me, hey, we would like for you to come to Nashville and start a new company for us. Sounded like I wasn't looking to leave. I absolutely loved where I worked. I love the people. I highly respected the people I work for. But if you get a call like that, you at least got to think about it. I'm 29 years old, and they're giving me an opportunity to start a new company that someone else is going to bankroll. So I took the call. But before I went and met with them, I went to my national sales manager at Manulife with Logan and told him what this opportunity was. And he said, Jeff, I don't want to lose you, but you've got to go. You're 29 years old. This company, I have a lot of respect for, is offering to start a new company that they're going to let you start from scratch and run. There's no risk on you because they're bankrolling it. The only risk is maybe it doesn't work. And by the way, if it doesn't, guess what? I'd bring you back in a heartbeat. So think about those two different management styles. I've got one manager who can't even understand how to work with someone who's going through a tragedy to support them, to another manager that's putting his teammate, myself, ahead of him and ahead of the company interests to do what was right for me. Not to mention, by those words, he gave me confidence that I could actually go do that job, start that company, and be successful. So that, by the way, that manager is Bob Casado, who ended up being one of the best mentors I've ever had in my career. Just the way he handled things, I knew then that was the type of manager I wanted to be. And by the way, thinking back to when I made that call to that previous manager on that Monday night after my fiance had just passed away, I couldn't have articulated it on that day because I was in too much shock. But I knew deep down that day I decided exactly who I did not want to be. And that was that manager at that time. Versus this other manager that did things the right way. I can tell you that's exactly who I wanted to be moving forward. So, the topic today, embracing ethical leadership in a time of uncertainty. Obviously, my first manager was not doing that. My second manager that I had at Rutland for Logan was. Probably no surprise to you that 4 years later, when the startup company was bought by UBS, Payne Weber, and they made the decision they didn't need us anymore, I was now faced with another challenge. And that is this new company that we had just built We had roughly 20, 25 employees. The parent company was bought. They didn't need us. And all these individuals were going to lose their jobs. So the person that I reported to, and that fellow by the name of Alan Erb at JC Bradford that basically oversaw the company, I saw what he did. He immediately went to the phones, immediately started calling people in the industry that he knew on behalf of these 25 salespeople that were in our organization to find them jobs. I watched what he did, and I said, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So together, the two of us called all of our contacts in the industry. Within 60 days of JC Bradford being bought, and them basically telling us that they didn't need us. By the way, they were still employed. They hadn't even been severed yet, but we knew it was coming. All 25 people had new jobs. Because Alan's lead and me watching what Alan was doing and me doing the same thing found those individuals those jobs. And I'll tell you, when I made many of those calls to the people that I was calling on their behalf, many of them were asking me, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm going to find jobs for them. I'll worry about myself later. So probably no surprise to you when I made that call to Manulife Wood-Logan, which at that time was now Manulife Investments. When I made that call to Bob Casado, Bob said, I'd love to interview your people, but what are you going to do? So I'll talk to you about that after I find jobs for these 25. So all 25 got their jobs. I then talked to Bob Casado and think back to 4 years prior to that when he said, hey, if things don't work out, I'll bring you back in a heartbeat. Guess where I went? I went right back to Manulife Wood-Logan as a divisional sales manager for the South and the Midwest. Because Bob Casado held up his end of that bargain and that conversation that he had had with me. So Alan from JC Bradford, great leader, great mentor, showed me the way to handle tough, stressful situations. Bob Casado, the same thing from Manulife Wood-Logan. The point is, you're going to have the opportunity as you get out in your careers, and it will start on day one. I promise you it will, to have the ability to watch what other leaders in your organization are doing. And you'll have a choice to make. Do you pay attention to it? Or do you just not pay attention to it? If you see something you like, do you put that in your memory bank as something you want to emulate and copy? Or you just not really think about it? Do you see someone that's doing something wrong and not internalize that? My recommendation to you, I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by great leaders and bad leaders. You can learn from both. Take the time. Think about what they're doing. Internalize that, and it'll make a big difference to you as an ethical leader in the future. So you may have picked up, I joined Manulife Wood-Logan. Today it was called Manulife John Hancock in 1993. And outside of those 4 years that we had that startup company, that's in essence where I've been ever since, and I'm still there today. That's 29 years that I've been there. Now, if you research the division that I work for, which is Manulife John Hancock Investments, you'll find that that is not that uncommon. And in fact, there's many people that have been here 15, 20, 25, 30 years and are still here today. That is so unusual in the world that we're in today. It just doesn't happen that often. But that's exactly where I work. The only way it happens is if you have highly ethical leadership that's running the organization. Because I've been surrounded by so many great people to learn from, I've been able to provide that. Now, my path at John Hancock, just so you know, because I think it helps add some context, is I was a salesperson that you knew about when I was in the field in North Carolina. Then I became a divisional sales manager. Then I became national sales manager. And then after national sales manager, I became head of the U.S. distribution as president. I've been in the same role now for 18 years. And when I was given this opportunity 18 years ago, I felt strongly for us to grow and us to be successful, we had to do it as a team. And I use the word team in two ways. One is I believe in teamwork, but more importantly, what does team stand for? TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. And we built a culture around that concept of team. We were a very, very small player, quite frankly, when I rejoined the organization and took over Manulife John Hancock Investments at that time. A couple of months after taking over, I brought the management team together in a meeting in Chicago in a hotel room, put us in a boardroom, locked us in there basically for 2 days with one mission: for us to decide as a management team, together as a team, who we're going to be, what we're going to stand for, and ultimately how we're going to be successful in this business. What came out of that meeting was something that we called the strategic intent. Now, strategic intent had two parts. The first one was outward looking to our clients. and it said to be the premier provider of business building strategies and investment solutions for financial professionals. I don't care whose strategic intent you're looking at, it looks probably something like that. It's outward looking, basically saying who we want to aspire to be. The one that I would say in there, though, was really important, and that is the word premier. We wanted to be the best. That was the one word I'd probably take out of that. But that really doesn't have anything to do with ethics. That has to do with who we want to be to drive our success. The part that has more to do with ethics is inward looking, to promote a culture of continuous improvement that is people-focused, family-friendly, and team-oriented. That was written in 2008. And I want to highlight a few things here. First, the word promote. I don't know that I could have told you back in 2008 how important that word was going to be. Because to me, you can put a lot of stuff on paper. A lot of companies do. The question is, do you live by it? But putting the word promote in there, we're saying as a management team, we're promoting this. We want this to happen. However, it can't happen if what we put on paper doesn't actually happen in real life. So what using the word promote meant was we can promote it, we can't drive it. It's everybody else in the organization that has to do this. It's people in the sales field, people in the home office, people in operation, people in compliance, people in legal. Everyone had to buy into this. How can you be people-focused, family-friendly, and team-oriented if you don't? So that was the culture that we were built, and using the word promote was a key part in driving that and making that happen. So for 18 years, this has been our focus. And the big thing that I think is done by using that word promote and putting the onus back on everyone in the organization to live by this is they, meaning we as a team, can nurture it, we can own it, we can call out people who aren't living by it, which is another thing you have to be willing to do, because if they don't need to be here. It's that simple, if they're not going to live by those principles. In addition to that, 3 times a year, I have a management meeting, and one of the topics we have with the full management team together is, how are we doing here? Are we living by it? Do we have any holes? What do we need to do to correct it? And I'll tell you, it will be tested. Your ethics will be tested. You'll be asked to do things you don't believe in. What are you going to do about that when it happens? Well, I was truly tested when I first took this over in 2008. Now, I know many of you are too young to know what was happening in the world in 2008 and 2009, but let me give you a little cliff notes. When I took over in 2008, and remember, the strategic intent was written in 2008. When I took over in 2008, the world was falling apart. Financial crisis, banks and investment firms were going bankrupt. The government had to step in and save many of them. This was the world that I had stepped into to take over and run the US right when this was happening. I had just moved my family from Nashville to Boston right when this was happening. I didn't know at that time whether or not we were even going to be in business in 2 years. If there was ever any time that I was tested about not having ethical leadership and just doing whatever it took to survive, that was it. However, as a team, since we had built this and we were living by this, our belief was if we just stay true to our true north, don't deviate from this. We have the right team, we have the right products, we have the right approach, and we're doing it the right way. We will ultimately get through this, and we did. Now, a lot of people in my type jobs from my competition would come here and probably tell you, how can you be people-focused, family-friendly, and team-oriented? That's soft. How can you run a business that way? My answer to that, hire good people. Provide an environment that they can excel in. Provide an environment that they can get better in, a la continuous improvement. And trust them to do their jobs. And if you do that, you'll ultimately get through this. So let me go back to 2008 and 2009. You're going to see a bit of a story here. 2009, which was my first full year. I took over in July of 2008. 2009 was my first full year in the role. These will sound like big numbers to you, but in my industry, trust me, they're very small. And we finished 2009 with 20 billion in assets under management as a firm. In that year, we did 7 billion in sales. Again, I know they probably sound like big numbers, but they're really not. We were barely surviving. That number's in red for a reason. We were losing money at that point in time at 20 billion in assets under management. What came next? 2010, 2011, 2012. We went from 7 billion in sales in 2009 to averaging 7 billion in sales in 2009 to averaging 12 billion in sales over the next 3 years by sticking to our principles. Then the big lift came. At that point, we're basically breaking even, still not really making a lot of money. But then the big lift came. 2013 through 2020. During that time period, we went from averaging 12 billion in sales to 26 billion in sales. We almost doubled our business in that time period, average annual sales. Then the next one, big lift came. 2021 to last year, 2025. By the way, you might find it interesting. You notice that the best year of sales we ever had was 2021, right in the heart of COVID. Anybody want to guess why that was? No one was spending any money. What were they doing with their money? They're investing it in companies like ours. So they're making great investments. By the way, that was great for them. They're a lot richer today because of that. But if you notice, during this 5-year period, we went from 7 billion in sales in 2009 to 12 billion over the next 3 years to 26 billion, and now we're averaging 34 billion a year in sales. And I will tell you, our next stop will be 50 billion a year. That's the next big hurdle that we'll hit. And I believe that we'll get there. The last thing I want to mention on this chart, go back to the $20 billion number in assets under management that you see to the far left. That's a critical number because it doesn't really matter what you sell. What matters is what we have in assets. That's where us as an organization make our money because we get fees on the assets that we manage. That number today is $155 billion. So for the people who said, that's kind of soft. How can you run a company? How can you do this if all you're focused on is having a great environment for your employees? Here's my answer. The only way you get growth like this is one of two ways. One, you go buy it, you acquire another company that has these assets and grow that way. We did not acquire anybody. This is 100% organic growth. We bought no one. Or number two, a great team of ethical leaders that know how to motivate and cultivate a great culture to drive people to this type of success. So the question probably is, why have we had this success? Are investment products any better? No, it's a commodity at the end of the day. They're good, but no really no better than anybody else's. I believe it's because it's our team believes. They believe in our strategy. They believe in the fact that we over-communicate to them. They believe in the person to the right and the person to their left because that person's probably been there for 10, 15, 20, 25 years because they believe in our culture. Our reputation in the industry is simply known as one of the greatest places in the industry to work. That allows us to recruit and retain some of the best talent in the industry. In an industry whose products have become a commodity, you either have to grow and cultivate or buy, as you already heard. We did this through cultivating a great culture. So I'm going to shift gears for a moment and actually do something I would never have thought I've ever done. And that is I'm going to quote Nick Saban. And as a Clemson fan, that's really, really hard to do. So Nick Saban did a commencement address several years ago, and he had 3 things that he talked about that you need to do to succeed in life. First is have compassion for other people. Here's his words. Treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people nicely on the way up. You might meet them on the way down. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Those are all Nick's words, not mine. Number 2, be responsible for your own self-determination. His words, you must earn it. Don't look at somebody else. Don't blame somebody else. I can promise you, for me personally, it would have been easy for me to blame and point fingers when I was 24 years old dealing with that strategy. That would have gotten me nowhere. Number 3, the last thing Nick said, it's not about beating the other guy. Believe it or not, Nick Saban said that. It's not about being better than somebody else. It's about being the best you that you can be and doing it the right way. So as I was reminded about this, and I went back and I listened to his speech, it made me think. It made me kind of internalize and soul search and think about what's important to me when it comes to ethical leadership. And I want to share these 6 things with you. And these are my words here that I think will make you some of the best ethical leaders there can be. You might want to put these down because I think they could take you a long way in so many ways. First, determine your true north. What is your strategic intent? And are you going to live by it? Write it down. Most importantly, share that with someone that's willing to hold you accountable to that. By the way, the person that does that for me is my business coach. It's sitting up there. If I do something that doesn't fit with my true north, he's going to tell me. Number two, treat everyone with respect. Now, Nick Saban talked about this too. I'm going to just take it another step further. I don't mean people at work. I mean everyone. When I used to coach our sales team, the one thing I always said is, hey, you need to work the office from the front door to the back door. That means the minute that you walk in and you greet the receptionist at the front, you treat that person the exact same way as the best producer in that office. Treat everyone as if they're just as important to you as everybody else. Treat everyone with respect. Number three, self-reflect. And I have to tell you, this might be one of the biggest things to me personally. Truly reflect on yourself. Are you living up to your standards? Have you decided who you want to be, and are you doing it? That's a hard thing sometimes, to be honest with yourself, but it will make a big difference if you do that. Number four, be vulnerable. Let them see the real you. Be honest. It's real. It's okay to show your weaknesses. People respect other people that are vulnerable. Don't be scared to be vulnerable. Number five, surround yourself with people that have different skill sets, but with the same values. You never want to surround yourself with people with the same skill sets. That's a recipe for disaster, because you need a management team with different opinions, but you have to have the same core values. I've been so fortunate. The former head of strategic relationships for me was 15 years with the company before he retired. I shouldn't even say with the company, we're not part of the company. The national sales manager, 17 years with the organization. They had different skill sets than me. They had different skill sets than each other, but they had some of the highest principles of anyone I've ever known in the business. And then finally, actually two more. Surround yourself with these people, because the last thing I want to mention on this is, if you surround yourself with highly ethical people, it is great for your brand. Here's the last one. Don't waver on your principles. You will be tested. You'll be asked to compromise your principles. It's easy to do that in the heat of the moment. All it takes is one time, one mistake, one deviation from your principles, and it can blow you up. It is not worth the risk. Never, ever go against your principles. Now, I've always lived my life with a personal belief that good things happen to good people. Does that mean you won't have challenges? No, you will. And you'll have to figure out how to overcome them. The question is always, to me, this is the biggest thing. In times of stress, how are you going to respond? Are you going to stick to your ethics when you do that? I'll start my comments tonight by sharing a personal story of tragedy and the right ways and wrong ways to handle situations, stressful situations. I want you to know that my story has a good ending. About 2 years after the death of my fiance, I was hosting a housewarming party at my new house I just bought down in Louisiana and down in New Orleans. And all my friends that I had down there were guys, and all of them grew up in the area. So I'm having this housewarming party. So I called a couple of them up and said, hey, I need your help. This party's going to be a bust if you don't invite some girls to come. So I let the locals take care of that for me. And about an hour into the party, and watched my door, someone by the name of Pamela Dahl. Yes, Dahl, D-O-L-L, Pamela Dahl. I'll have to say she caught my attention the minute she walked in, the way she was dressed, the way she looked. Also, to admit, because she had a bottle of vodka in one hand and a six-pack of beer in the other. But that was the introduction of the person that I would then, 3 years later, marry, and 3 years after that, have our first child. By the way, both of our children have graduated from Clemson as well, even though my wife is an Arizona State grad. The point I'm making is, you work through your challenges, you do it the right way, you do it with high ethics, you'll be rewarded in the long run. Because I can tell you, I could not imagine my life today with anything, emotional, with anything other than my wife, Pamela, and our kids. I couldn't. I talked about the importance of surrounding yourself with good people, ethical people. That's not just in the workplace, it's in the home as well. She's the most ethical person I could have partnered with, and she is the most ethical person in our household. So ethics goes beyond business, it goes in your personal and your daily life as well. So as I enter 2026 and getting closer to retirement, I want to count my blessings, and one of them is having the opportunity to speak to you today. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I know we're going to go to the plenary sessions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duckworth, for empowering us to be ethical leaders throughout constant changes. There we go. We want to encourage all students to get involved in the Institute's programming. As stated earlier, the quickest way to find out what we are up to is to follow us on social media. You'll find several exciting opportunities to get involved here. By being here tonight, you've already completed a requirement for our Ethics Scholars program and may not have even known it. Our program recognizes undergraduate and graduate students committed to ethical leadership and decision-making and offers the opportunity to earn an Ethics Scholars Cord or a Distinguished Ethics Scholars Medallion, along with a certificate to strengthen your resume. You can self-enroll through Clemson Job Link and track your progress as you build valuable ethics-based experience. Learn more through the links on our social channels or at clemson.edu/ethics. You can also get involved with Change, the Student Ethics Committee of the Rutland Institute for Ethics. Change creates campus-wide and college-specific programming that brings ethical decision-making to life through speakers, events, and real-world applications. Members help lead initiatives like the annual Ethics Day, the Tide Conference, and the Ina B. Durham High School Ethics Case Competition, while also serving as the student voice of the Institute. With representatives from every college, Change is a great way to engage, lead, and make an impact in ethics at Clemson. You can talk to me or another representative here tonight about how to get involved. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. For those of you needing to verify your full attendance at this event, please utilize the QR code now displayed on the screen. And next, we will have our first plenary sessions of the evening. Emily Elizabeth is going to make an announcement about those now.
Yes, awesome. We hope that you will continue with our plenary sessions. Mr. Duckworth is actually going to be in room 101, so that's a bit of a change from our Tide schedule. It's going to be right out those doors on our left. That's where he'll be for part 3. Our other plenary session will be upstairs in 201, right above 101. And if you're planning to stay with us a little bit later, our session 4A will still be in the auditorium, but our session 4B has also had a slight change of plan. So that'll be, instead of 228 upstairs, it'll also be in room 201. So thank you guys so much. At this time, you are dismissed for your plenary sessions.